Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the risk-based vulnerability management workshop organized by Cloud Security Alliance, the Romanian chapter. Today's session will address a fundamental challenge in a modern cybersecurity world. We are no longer lacking of vulnerability data. We are actually drowning in it. And the real differentiator is not who scans more, but who prioritized better. Risk-based vulnerability management means shifting from static CVSS scores and patch everything actually to contextual, business aligned, and decision making. It's about understanding exploitability, exposure, threat activity, and optional impact, and of course, translating all into measurable risk reduction. We are privileged to have with us Radu Stănescu, founder and CEO of Sendline, a professional who I really admire. I think he influenced a lot of cybersecurity professionals, including myself, and I think many pen testers and offensive security professionals, at least from Romania and also from abroad, have openly stated that Radu has been a source of inspiration in let's say shaping this mindset, because in offensive security, at least, I think mindset be the skills. That idea is particularly relevant tonight because tools are evolving, exploits are changing, CVs are multiplying, but strategic thinking, analytic rigor, and the ability to interpret risk in context, those are enduring competitive advantages. So, Radu, with this one, I think the floor is yours, and you can, I don't know, start by presenting yourself and showing us some. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dragos. Thank you, CSA Romania. Thank you for the kind words, first of all. Yeah, you probably already sum it up everything that I was planning to say, but it's a very good opening. And indeed, nowadays it's not anymore about who is, let's say, scanning more or who is scanning fast or who is covering more code or more application. Although the attack surface is still one of the very important aspects when you're speaking about vulnerability management, because I'm still seeing how companies are nowadays struggling with something that us in cybersecurity we were taking for granted. Let's say like the fact that organizations know all their assets and they know where they are. They know that there are all the assets that they have and no other rogue assets are around in the network, which is not really the case. So yeah, definitely attack surface monitoring is the root of any vulnerability management program that you want to initiate. Now, speaking about the next part, which you mentioned, is not about CVSS and just the vulnerability, the technical vulnerability itself. Indeed, I'm, let's say, preaching about this thing for a little bit over, I don't know, 10, 15 years. As I was saying, look, CVSS is not necessarily the best way to score a vulnerability. Not only because it's looking from purely technical point of view, meaning that, okay, he's analyzing from the vector of attack, the network information and all that, but it's also lacking meaningful data for not so technical persons, because in the end, we must admit, either we want it or not, especially as a cybersecurity professional, that solving vulnerabilities, solving issues in the network related about cybersecurity it's about having the resources, and those resources are very scarce. Either that we're speaking about human resources or financial resources or time resources, whatever, they are quite scarce in this area. And in a lot of cases, we need to go towards the management, I don't know, CFO, the CRO, and other C's level to, let's say, explain them that we're having some issues and to ask for some resources, mostly money in general, or at least with money, we can get some more software, hardware, people, whatever. And they were lacking, there was a real fracture, let's say, between the technical people, which needed those resources, and the management, which did not understood what SQL injection means, or process scripting, or I don't know, remote code execution and stuff like that. And if they were not understanding, they will also not prioritize. They will not give the necessary resource and time and money to the people to fix it. So that's the moment when I realized that prioritizing just on that CVSS, which is still very used, very known all over, is not necessarily the best approach when you need to speak at the board level. That's when I pretty much starting digging a little bit left and right on different methodologies, and I bumped into Octave, Stride, Dread, and other methodologies for calculating this risk, which they have their benefits in for different purposes. Depending, if you're looking just for code vulnerability, then you might go for one. If you're looking from more project management perspective, you might look on another one. But one which I highly liked, although it did not get much traction in the beginning, now maybe a little bit more, is the DREAD methodology, because this one is basically based on 5 pillars. The first D is the damage. That is in very simple terms, meaning that you can explain what will happen to the organization if that vulnerability will be exploited. Maybe it will not be exploited, but what will it happen if it's actually exploited? And there you can go on a scale from 1 to 10. Usually they're split in 4 categories, so depending on each organization how to decide. Then you have the reproducibility, because also this aspect can be quite interesting. Is that a vulnerability that you can reproduce anytime? There are no other race condition that you might need in order to exploit that vulnerability. Or I don't know, maybe you can exploit it only on Tuesday 13 if it's an odd month of the year, something like that, I don't know. Or maybe you can reproduce it only while also a backup procedure is in place. You never know what's going on. So that's also an interesting aspect because it puts a little bit of urgency on the decision point. When you tell him, hey, this is a vulnerability that you can exploit only twice a year, it's not gonna be, maybe it's a very critical vulnerability, but if it's only twice a year that can happen, is not that important. If you're telling him it can be exploited anytime, then the reproducibility factor might wait a little bit in the decision. Next one is the exploitability. So how easy it is to exploit that part, meaning, is there a public exploit? Is there a script already done? Does it have even a web graphical interface so any script kiddies can do it? Or you need to be a really advanced hacker, like someone that I know that hacks bio devices and other things like that. Here I'm pointing towards Dragosh. That you really need to have deep understanding and deep knowledge on how to create your own exploit and to hack it. Next, what's really important for the decision factor, I discovered that it's the type or the number of affected users. Here you can debate if it's more on the type or the affected or it's a mix, but definitely the type of affected users is meaningful, because if the vulnerability is internet facing and the company is offering client service, then if it's affecting all the users, then yeah, it could be something critical. While if it's affecting only the administrator of the application, it can be a little bit less critical, from their decision point of view. From my decision is as well very critical, but it depends a lot on if there's an interface, administrative interface exposed and so on. And then we're reaching the last pillar, the discoverability, meaning how easy it is to discover the vulnerability. Can you do it with an automatic tool, open source, or you need some commercial to detect it, or you need even, let's say, a more manual approach where you start to dig after the vulnerability and you start having different techniques that will allow you to discover this vulnerability. So yes, indeed, I think that going the extra mile about CVSS, it's one of the key important factor. And one last thing that I want to point out in this part is that you need to take into consideration all the other aspects. Like, for example, okay, it's easy to exploitable or not? Is it a public exploit or not? Of course, that's also important. But where is that asset located? Meaning in which network, for example, of the infrastructure of the client? Is it something that is exposed to the internet? Is it something that is not exposed to the internet but contains critical information of the organization? And then you can go drill down up to, let's say, the asset importance on which it is. So, for example, is that asset a main supporting element of one of the essential services of the organization is providing, or is it something on less important? I mean, to make it more clear, if it's a bank, for example, is it on a marketing website of the bank, or is it on the internet banking part? So these are things, I think that there are critical aspects into deciding a little bit how the prioritization is done.
In this context, to how can I, if you have to advise a CISO who is actually, I don't know, overwhelmed with thousands of findings after a scan, what would be the first three, let's say, contextual factors that he should take into consideration before deciding what to remediate first?
Well, I will start with the most painful one for him, because he will have to rely on other guys answering this question. Is asset classification or data classification and then asset classification in terms of criticality. So you have, okay, the data classification first, but then that data stays on some assets, and it pretty much relies on, is there a business continuity plan, a disaster recovery plan? Then you should go there and check with the data owners and to see exactly, okay, how important are their assets. The fun fact that usually happens here is that initially, in the first phase of the discussion, what I've seen with several CISO is that they're approaching their C-level or a little bit lower, depends, and they say, hey, tell me your assets and how important are they for the business. The first answer will be they're very important, extremely critical for the business. Then the CISO will say, okay, then in this case, your SLAs, your service level agreement, will be very tight. You will have, I don't know, 24 hours to fix a critical vulnerability or a high, and so on. So at that moment, then there is the opposite effect where everybody says, yeah, it's not that important. What's the lowest time frame that I can use for the SLA in order to be able. So it's a sorry, it's a balance that you need to find between the two aspects. That, yeah, it's in the end gonna be a negotiation. What's the actual time where the business can afford to have a particular service or a particular asset offline, in terms of maybe there are some SLAs towards the clients or other kind of things. Yeah, that would be probably the first recommendation that I will give. The second one is chronologically it should be before that, but from importance point of view, I will put it a little bit after. Is the full attack surface monitoring and to know your assets and to be able to detect new assets, because in a lot of cases that will matter a lot, especially nowadays with a lot of wireless networks that are just purely extending the LAN. There's no delimitation, no DMZs, no safety zones. That's one problem. On the other hand, also, if we're speaking just in the pure LAN network, the wired one, let's be honest, how many organizations have a proper network access control in the network, and if they have, how good it is protecting also, let's say, the printers part, which could be some entry point, very very nice. So I
IoT
think
and so on.
IoT, yeah, definitely the whole shebang, business automation and all that. So definitely that's a second advice that I will definitely try to approach as soon as possible. Um, the third one that I would set is also at the C-level. I would say there should be some sort of agreement upon two factors. First of all, especially when initiating such a vulnerability management program, would be to agree upon the number of severities that you want to have in an organization. And here you can range anywhere between, let's say, 3 and 5. Um, and also how they are split, let's say, into the range, how it's being split. Do you have equally split in 5 the whole range? Do you have it more towards the low and medium in the beginning, or the info even, and a very small part of high and critical, which in general I advise, because otherwise if you bump into the second part of the discussion that I wanted to reach, is what are the SLA of fixing those findings based on their criticality, then you might end up having 1,000 vulnerabilities high and critical that you need to fix in 24 hours, which is not definitely not possible. And also, it's important that these decisions are part of a process, a recurrent process that should be reevaluated in time and that should be adjusted based on the organization risk appetite and yeah, the current situation at each step.
Yep. Um, I think you already saw. I really want to jump into this AI stuff which is happening right now, and I think it's a super important topic. OpenClaw and the others. So we are seeing that the increase of AI vulnerability discovery, prioritization, and even exploit development. From your perspective, how can AI will improve the vulnerability identification and also the risk scoring in order to, let's say, to avoid deviations and actually to limit what is happening, let's say, in the standard vulnerability management, to avoid the false positive, the let's say the stupid results that are provided by automated scanners, let's say.
Yeah, definitely AI is helping also us on the defensive part, not only on the offensive part that we can see plenty of tools popping up. I think there are basically two major areas in this realm of vulnerability scanning, vulnerability management, where AI can bring a lot of benefit, but also a third one, which I have the feeling that is getting more and more important, even though I was pretty much ignoring it until recently. So for the first two, the first one will be, as you mentioned, the false positive rate, because with AI you will be able to recycle again the false positive and to see exactly if what the vulnerability scanner detected does really apply, that it really means, and also to correlate that information with, let's say, um, backend information that you might know about what are your assets, exactly what software you have on your assets, what version you have on your assets. And when you correlate what the scanner detects with what you already know, hopefully you have that information, then you really can automate the false positive rate and eventually decrease it to very close to zero. Because if you have also the insight about what's on your network, if you have last like some OS query or something like that, that can really provide you insights. Okay, you're telling me I have a Apache vulnerability, but I'm having only Nginx, so that's
Yeah,
totally
yeah.
false positive. Then the next aspect where definitely it will help is in the prioritization part, in terms of giving more context to the vulnerability in order to lower their risk or to higher their risk. In terms of okay, is it exploitable now in the wild? So these are, let's say, the dynamic part of vulnerability management, where you're looking from the risk perspective. And these are things like that they're moving, they're not static ones. Pretty similar, let's say, to the EPSS, which is somehow dynamic but not really adaptive, let's say, to the whole situation. So I think that in the prioritization part, definitely AI will play a key role and will be able to let's say improve the work and to make it easier and faster for the security analyst in terms of prioritizing. But last but not least, definitely, I'm seeing a lot of usage of AI chatbots. And I'm
Mhm.
looking here on internally deployed chatbots. So I'm not speaking here about Gemini, ChatGPT, or whatever, but internally developed chatbots, which you can interact with from the remediation perspective, where you're telling, look, I'm having this vulnerability on this system, but the recommendation that the scanner is giving me does not really apply to me. Either I'm putting it, but
Okay.
it's not really fixing it, or maybe I need a workaround because I cannot apply that fix. So what can you provide in terms of workaround? And this segment of chatbot inside of vulnerability management tools, I have the feeling that they are grasping some really interesting grounds right now, because in a lot of cases, um, there is that lack of resources, human resources that I was speaking in the beginning. And if we're speaking also about really specialized resources, you might see that the scarcity is even higher. So it's somehow hard for maybe a sysadmin or net admin or a dev even to really understand the vulnerability and to fix it, and to be somehow sure that the fix that they're going to apply will not break something else, because otherwise it will be considered their fault. So in this realm of speaking with consultant and AI consultant, let's say,
Mhm, mhm.
I have the feeling that they are really grasping some grounds on this, because it's becoming to be more useful, while at the same time, you as an organization, you're not putting all your eggs on the internet, and everybody can well, not everybody, but um, you do not publish your internal affairs on the outside. So this is something that I'm also seeing good traction.
Okay. Okay. But continuing this on this idea, would you rely on an agent, AI agent, basically, which
We,
is, let's say, built on whatever you are feeding, yeah, the actual recommendation that you are asking for, and in the end, based on this, to apply some patches, and after that, reevaluate the security posture. I mean, like performing like a retest, not like an exploitation in the wild again, without having all the things in place.
well, well, yeah, that sounds a little bit of like Asimov, but we're getting there probably. The idea is that if you would have asked me this, I don't know, 3, 5 years ago, probably I would have definitely say no. And nowadays, definitely you can improve a lot of things with AI agents, especially due to the fact that you can use an agent also to test that everything works fine. And
Exactly.
okay, now the problem that I'm seeing here is where you will put more time in developing, or in when you draw the line, if it's gonna take you 5 days to create the whole scenario, to script it, to get to feed it to the AI agent so he can test afterwards, and then also to create the patching cycle initially. Um, and you can test it in 5 minutes manually, then you need to balance somehow these things. But sometimes it's a lot easier to just test it manually, and that's it. So that's why I'm still a little bit reluctant, but I'm not sure that in 1 year or two from now I will have the same answer. It depends a lot on the capability probably of generating flows quite easily. I'll give you an example. N8N. With N8N, you can do a lot of things, automation and all that. Now, the good part is that at least with ChatGPT right now, you can quite easily tell ChatGPT what you want, and they will create that JSON file with the whole action that you just import in N8N afterwards. So this part, if it will evolve more, I believe that it can eventually bring some really good benefits in the whole realm. On the other hand, if we're going back on, let's say, the reality check now on organizations, especially the larger you go, the more bureaucratic it becomes in procedures and all that, and maintenance windows and announced maintenance windows and all that. I believe that there should be, I mean, even if we have the technology here, what will be a lot more difficult than changing the technology will be changing the mindset of people. And this is for two reasons. First of all, you'll have the first layer, the management layer here, that will probably be a little bit scared about, hey, should I really conceive my whole guts of the business to some AI agent? First part. Second, you will have the lower part of the organization, which I believe that at least in the beginning, how it was with all the new improvements from the 60s to AI now to whatever, they will say, hey, we're losing our job. So let's slow down this part of the evolution. So I think from these two elements, there will be a little bit of pushback until the moment that you will be able to say, hey, you know what? You can automate the whole thing and it's going to be fine. So you're going to use people only to monitor that the scenarios that I did, they're
Mhm.
fine. And I'm going here back a little bit out of the particular subject of vulnerability management. I'm going towards the pure development part, where if you're looking in a lot of cases, you develop an application or a module in an existing application. And that takes you, I don't know, a couple of hours. But then if you want to do the whole test unit for that, and all the scenarios where that function will be involved somehow, it might take you 2, 3, 4 times more. And in a lot of cases, if you know that you're not going to modify that much that function, you say, okay, I'm developing 5 minutes of code and testing 5 hours afterwards. So although you cannot always prevent this, but I have the thing that it's still this problem of this test case scenario, how you fix that. Because automating the fix, that will be definitely very easy and very fast forward. And I think
Mhm.
people will start adopting it, especially where you have pre-prod environments and you can deploy there and check there.
In terms of integration now, because you have such a product you developed, you worked probably more than 10 years to your actual product in terms of maturity, the capabilities, and the other things that centralizer can do. Would you involve or would you integrate such I don't know, an agent in order to improve the time to perform this in a very automated way for client perspective, for even for, I don't know, for optimizing some flows?
So currently we have a couple of AI algorithm implemented in the centralizer. The first one that came even before the big bang of AI, let's say, which was pretty much more algorithmic processing rather than AI. It's after some time that we transform it into an AI part. It was an adaptive risk evaluation based on user behavior, meaning that in an organization, you start with the baseline level for the SLAs and with the risk levels, of course. And then you start observing that some responsible persons, some asset owners react very fast, meaning that, I don't know, in a couple of minutes after they receive their email during working hours, they are logging into the platform, they are reading the description of the vulnerability, they are acknowledging the status of the vulnerability, meaning, yes, I acknowledge that I have a vulnerability, I will start working on it. Then they will start fixing, maybe question a few things, and the security analyst can be able to reply. So there is a back and forth of messages, and then eventually they will gonna close the vulnerability, and the closure is a correct one, so the security analyst or the scanner can confirm that the vulnerability is not there anymore. So this is the normal flow, but as we know, it's not everything normal all the time, and sometimes you have some people that react like that, some other people that will not react, and in centralizer there is a mechanism which, based on the SLA, on that is depending on the asset criticality and the criticality of the vulnerability, you have a certain number of days that you need to acknowledge. Why is this acknowledgement phase very important from our point of view? It is because basically, let's say until a vulnerability has been discovered into the vulnerability management program of an organization, the risk, I will not say pointing fingers, but the risk is somehow split between the asset owner and the security team, because the asset owner should have, let's say, update or harden their asset correctly, while the security team should have detect that it was not correctly done. The moment that the security team discovers it, from that moment on, basically the risk is not on their side anymore, and it's pushed towards the asset owner. But the asset owner can say, yes, it's my risk, or no, because I'm using a third-party product, so I will need to advance towards there. So it is this first of transferring the risk responsibility, basically. And second is the solving part, which again can happen in the same way with another SLA. Now, the A part that we did here, it is in order to higher the risk or lower the risk of the vulnerability based on the previous behavior of the user that is responsible of fixing the vulnerability. So if it's someone which is always fixing it, okay, the risk will be the same, or maybe even a little bit lowered compared to other vulnerabilities. Well, if there is someone that he always is going over the SLA of acknowledging, and then the escalation process is triggered automatically, and then his boss is asking, hey, what do you do with that vulnerability and so on. If there are this kind of interaction, then it means that most probably future interactions with that owner will be quite similar. So all the future vulnerabilities, including the current one, but also the future one, should have a higher risk, because the exposure of the company will be for a longer period of time. That's the first one that we implemented. Second one that we implemented a while ago, it was the chatbot, which I mentioned earlier. And we initially started with something more basic, and then we advanced towards more recommendation. The first part that we started, it was, as you probably know, pen testers, they like to discover, they like to prove that they are very good by finding the exploit, but they don't like reporting, they don't like explaining a lot of words, they don't like putting a lot of recommendations and all that. I presume that you agree with me on that.
Completely.
So yeah, so basically what we did, we said, okay, in the part of the application where you can define a new vulnerability, you are just being able to put a name for that vulnerability in your plain words, English, and then hit a button and it will go and try to generate you a description or recommendation and even a severity. It could try to
Hmm.
do this
Hmm.
and map it. So we improved it over time. Now it's quite interesting. It's not 100% bulletproof, but definitely it gives you a lot of meat on the bone to work on the description, on the recommendation, and eventually to work with the severity that is needed. This is the second part, and then of course this went naturally into improving description that were given by scanners, and yeah, to give more information in on this part. Um, Third part that we just start now, it's related to an internal, for now, just a dust scanner or web application scanner that we're looking into implementing some AI algorithm by using open source vulnerability scanners that are already on the market, but we're not looking into necessarily improving those results, which we are already doing, but more on the decision part, let's say on the brain part of the scanner. Based on the information gathered from different parts, we triggered only some particular scanner. So let's say um, a mini dust LLM based scanner, let's say.
Okay.
This is
Okay.
the direction that we're looking into. And the next step will be definitely also for the network, the infrastructure scanner that will be similar. Again, we're going to use open source software, but we're going to enrich it and try to improve. Um, we're hoping that at least there is a very big problem in terms of licensing and pricing of the vulnerability scanners, as you probably know.
Hmm. Hmm.
And in a lot of cases, we're facing not very big organizations, which also even in bigger organizations, which they cannot afford to have two, three scanners on the market to have, or even one sometimes. We're trying to go to help on that part.
Yeah, I know, and I confirm that it's a problem on the market, and probably that's one reason why a lot of big companies are using, let's say, just one scanner, Nessus or Acunetics or something like that, and they are just cross-checking with some pen tests to really validate if something is possible. But I think the new platforms with AI probably will take over in the next few years, and
Mm.
yeah, we the good remark that you had for report writing, it was the one which actually changed the entire market, because um, a pen tester mindset and also a researcher, uh, all of all those persons are focused on their work, but in the end it's hard to understand that you need to produce a material, a report which that actually matters for a C level, for somebody who will take some action. If you are just exploiting something in the wild, then you are like an algorithm who is just, I don't know, providing some delays in his work. But in the end, yeah, there is no deliverable, there is no money,
Yeah,
there is
yeah,
no
no,
action.
yeah, definitely. It took me some time to understand that clients are paying for the report. They are not paying for your work,
In consultancy,
which,
exactly, exactly,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
You mentioned something regarding SLAs. Do you think that in the future those are going to be changed because of AI, because of technologies, because I don't know, everything will be made in a very automated way, and those need to be
I
adjusted?
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, I think the SLAs as well as the severity levels and the range, the threshold should be part of a process of vulnerability management. You need to reevaluate them from time to time, as well as the risk, accepted risk. You don't accept forever a risk. I mean, you need to reevaluate it at some time. SLA, I expect to be more tight in the future.
Mhm.
Um, but this it's still gonna depend a lot on the maturity level of the organization and how risk aware they are and what's their appetite. And yeah, I really think that this gonna depend a lot on this. Mm, I'm still a little bit reluctant at this point to say that they will pretty much disappear because agentic AI will solve it as soon as being deployed. I mean, if detected, it's going to be redeployed in a safe way.
Mhm.
But yeah, could happen. We never know what's going to be in the future. But for some time, I think they will slowly tighten. At the same time, it's that. By the book recommendation, I think it started from Microsoft. I don't know who started that critical vulnerability should be deployed in maximum 72 hours. Well, if you ask me, it was very late a few years ago. Now, if we're with AI, we're speaking about 72 hours. Well, all your data belongs to me in 72 hours, let's say.
Exactly. Everything is
So,
encrypted and it's already
yeah,
transferred.
exactly.
Uh,
So yeah.
In terms of integration, what do you think? Because yeah, probably most of the professionals in this domain heard about XBOW, and yeah, it took like 6 months to become number one in HackerOne to find this kind of stuff. But I think that's the major improvement that XBOW also is good in creating reports, nice reports, and understandable reports with all the proof of concept. What do you think it worth integrating with such a tool in terms of reporting and because it's something that I don't know also covers a hidden part of a professional's actual job, right? I mean, finding 0 days, which we don't know actually right now if they are well documented, if it's something in the dark or something that really needs to be covered.
Well, definitely, any integration, I'm a big fan of integration. Any integration is a good integration, that's for sure. Now, related to the one of the key element in reporting from my point of view is to be able to um, know exactly the report that you're gonna do. Although I'm not a big fan of report because from the moment that you export a report, the moment that someone reads and takes some action, things might have changed. So I'm more of a dashboard guy. Let's say go there and see the results right now. In terms of reporting, it matters a lot to see which is your audience and to adapt it to your audience. And here I'm not speaking just about how long or short to be the report, but also what kind of information to export in that report. Because if you're gonna board someone from the C level with the technical, the request and reply, and all that part, and how to duplicate the vulnerability to check it afterwards, I think it's not worth mentioning. So I think in terms of reporting, the calibration of the reports toward your audience is one of the key elements. Moreover, in here, I think that AI could play a really interesting role, and we're already evaluating that, but still did not, let's say, perform in a very good way because, at least in our case, we're looking only on-premise deployment of everything.
Mhm.
Um, I think that in this part also the executive reporting part, let's say, could have as input the technical report. So you just create one report and that the rest will be automatically generated also for the executive level. But it's yeah, uh, this is my opinion at least regarding reporting. Not a big fan of it, but when you do it, you need to address it based on audience.
Okay. Noted.
And
From.
side joke here is that I was speaking with someone which is doing NLP, and I'm not going to speak about NLP as natural language processing, the geek part, but
Mhm.
NLP, the natural language programming part. And we're discussing about what are the inputs and outputs, but mainly the inputs of human being in general. And there are people that, in order to understand something, they need to read it. There are people that, in order to understand something, they need to see some videos or some drawings or images or charts. Others are they need to hear it, or others, let's say, even they need to do the action. They are more kinetic in this part. And he was joking, but I'm more and more considering this part to create also, for example, audio reports,
Okay.
because they might be people out there in the sea level that they are more used to listen than to read. Sometimes you never know. So that could be also some sort of future.
Uh, do you think that our market is ready for this?
Depending on what market we're speaking, it
Let's
depends.
say local market, Romanian market, but
Local
also
market,
let's extend it to European market. Then.
probably not. Probably not. But if we're looking maybe towards US market, where, for example, podcasts are something
Mhm.
very used, there you might end up into having some grasp. I don't know. It's just food for thought, but it was
Yeah.
funny because yeah, it's you never know,
Uh,
or maybe just charts.
of course, of course. But the audio reports for me sounds pretty good, and I think it can. I don't know. We can skip a lot of hours by just performing the report readouts in front of some
Mhm.
clients, which
Yeah,
after 30 minutes they really get bored. And
exactly.
actually, with
Yeah,
those audio reports, they can put it whenever they want, when they
exactly.
are driving home.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah,
It's like
it's
that.
yeah, please.
Like those 15 minutes books. You know, 15 minutes, you hear the whole book. Okay, that's it.
Yeah, it has to be a switch in this kind of mindset. And coming back to this mindset perspective, especially considering the idea that I was presenting in the intro, that sometimes mindset beats skills. What do you think that differentiates a mature vulnerability management program from a reactive one? Is it tooling, governance, culture, probably something else?
Probably
What do you think?
is culture, organizational culture, but not only, also social culture. Um, But you said it in your question already. Mature program is not a reactive program; it's a proactive program. So this is the first change. I mean, the moment that you are in a reactive mode and you wait for things to happen and then to detect it and all that, it's definitely not the best approach. But in terms of proactivity, I really think it's culture that it's on the first step. um, Definitely, I would say sometimes, not all the times, but sometimes an incident might help. And here I'm going to the well-known thing that happened, 6 years ago, where we really saw that in general digitalization, especially in the government layer in several countries. Let's not pinpoint only one, but into several countries from European Union, let's say. And also in terms of remote work and VPN explosion and all that happened during COVID.
Mhm.
So the incident forced everybody, even though they were a fan or not, even though they liked it or not, they had to continue. Resilience took over in that moment, and yeah, they had to adapt. So sometimes an incident can change things that hundreds of hours of consultants from anywhere they failed. Small incident can change the mindset overnight.
But comparing, let's say, 2019 before pandemic, how was treated the how were treated the actual incidents, even ransomware, because at that point the ransomware weren't that big. And now after the pandemic, what do you think? What was the level, let's say, of the maturity started to show off in terms of this aspect, the vulnerability management? Is I
Well,
mean, do you find a change, a big change?
yeah, I would say it's a big change. I would say it's a big change before pandemic and after. Now I'm not sure which is the main trigger, or I would definitely go for a combination of triggers that happened somehow simultaneously. First, it was, yeah, the pandemic forced people to work more online, which meant more attack surface. As people was working from home, they were not behind the corporate firewall and the proxies, so they were a little bit more vulnerable. And the organization at that moment, they needed to readapt a little bit to their mindset. I wouldn't say go towards completely zero trust, but a little bit towards the idea, which until then it was only something science fiction. Or let's say the guys in the conferences they were speaking about, and that was all. After this pandemic, due to the attack surface, things have changed a little bit from this perspective. At the same time, somehow coincidence, probably also the AI part starting to move faster than before. And that's also probably one of the reasons why we've seen a little bit of more maturing, the company maturing their level of cybersecurity. But I think that the main driver is still the huge number of incidents and also the mediatizations of those incidents. They were going out on TV, which is was starting to be something new. Until now, until back then, you could not hear that often. Hey, I don't know, that company or that company had an incident or whatever. After COVID, I think that, yeah, the number of incidents raised, they were affecting a lot of businesses, they were crushing a lot of businesses, and that pretty much made it more towards everybody. For me, I remember 2018, I was in Singapore, and I was shocked at that moment. It was 2018, so just 1 year and a half, let's say 2 years before. I was shocked to see their ads on TV about cybersecurity in general as a fact, like cybersecurity awareness campaigns, or ads in the newspaper for cybersecurity products or cybersecurity services. You had these ads in the newspaper and on TV, so reaching basically everybody. And when I landed there, I picked up a taxi and I went to the hotel. And the guy said, "Okay, how are you? Where are you coming?" I said, "Look, I'm going to that conference for cybersecurity." The guy was aware of cybersecurity issues. He knew, for example, that his hospital had some cybersecurity attack, and the bank also had some issues at some point. So the guys were really aware, not scared, but cautious about the subject. I mean, they knew something about that. It was not like, what, cyber what? What's that? That was 2018. While everywhere in Europe, at least at that moment, it was a topic for a certain breed, let's say, of people. But the rest were like, yeah, I know a guy which is doing something on the computer, hackerish something, I don't know. That was it. Now, if you look on TV in in Romania, in other countries in Europe, you're gonna see different kind of ads or news about cybersecurity attack, ransomware, and different issues like that. Um, and also, the online media has started to pick up more this kind of news, because now if they are also on TV, of course they need to pick up also, because yeah, it's fashionable.
But what do you think? Let's say, what are going to be the next steps in the future regarding this domain? Okay, in order to increase the level of maturity, the level of awareness, because with this AI, everything is going to be somehow speed up, and we need a vision, yeah, to
Oh,
have something prepared.
yeah, I don't know if I can give you that vision, but definitely I think that there are some pillars that needs to happen, and in some places they are already happening. Um, First of all, is increase the awareness, and increase the awareness at all levels, starting, I don't know, I could dare to say even primary school, not only high school, um, up to sea level. As you know, in the NIS2 directive, for example, there a very small line which mentioned the fact that executive management should participate in such a training about cybersecurity. They need to understand. Pretty much, they need to understand what they are responsible for and what will happen to them if not. So that's the whole idea. But it needs to be implemented, as without awareness, definitely, it's like, I would say, like a second literacy. You really need to know a little bit more than just operate the computers nowadays, especially with the AI on the other side, on the attacker side, which can really mimic a lot of things that you will be clicking it, or you will be listening, or you'll be giving information. I was discussing with a friend of mine this morning. Um, Someone tried to scam him over the phone with different messages and so on. And the guy played his role until a point, and then he started putting very annoying question, and he managed to really piss off the scammer. And at some moment, the scammer hang up the conversation that was from a landline towards my friend's phone, and he wrote him from, I don't know if it was his private phone or a burner form, I don't know, on WhatsApp. And he told him that, look, you idiot, here is the screenshot of my bank account and how much money I'm doing from this in the last year. And the guy had 170k euro done from scamming in the last year in his bank account at the moment of the screenshot. So yeah, I told him, look, you're really patient, but really for this screenshot, really deserves everything. So it's working, because people do not have this kind of security literacy, let's say, cybersecurity literacy, and they get pwned from under different reasons. So that's definitely something that literacy should be in all the levels. The next step is, I really think that we're at a turning point, like in the industrial area when it started. A lot of people back then say, "Hey, I will took the robotics industrialization will take all our jobs, and what we're gonna do and all that." Um, and we've seen from then where people start adapting, everything went fine. I think this is also a turning point similar to that one. And besides cybersecurity, which is a safety measure on this part, I really think that there should be also something for AI, meaning that people should start learning how to use different basic tools of AI, mm, with two directions. First of all, to know what they're capable of and to protect. from this kind of behavior. The second part is to improve their work and to automate and to make things faster, because everybody is doing this around them. So if they don't adapt, there might be some issues.
Let's call it AI awareness, right?
Yeah, 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 definitely.
I think it's mandatory to adapt to those new technologies that are arising, and also to feel confident that AI is part of our lives right now. Um, Radu, thank you for sharing those super nice ideas, strategic perspectives with us. If there are any questions from online, I think it was a very fruitful discussion, and yeah,
I hope
we
so.
can
Yeah, if there
definitely
are,
continue few hours, but
yeah, if
We
there are
yeah.
can
any
continue, but
questions from online.
Radu, if you want to share screen the platform, or if you want to introduce
Uh,
something, you are free to do it.
I think that could go in another webinar, because it's gonna take a couple more hours to present the whole platform. The main key elements which I wanted to present is the fact that traditional vulnerability management is, let's say, obsolete. We need to go towards a more risk-based approach, and with or without the benefits of AI, but hopefully with the benefits of AI, to involve as much as possible the whole organization into the prioritization process, as it's not only one way, and it's not definitely from a single point of view that you can approach this. It's an organizational level. You need to increase the maturity level. So risk-based vulnerability management should be something where the whole all the levels of the organizations are involved.
Okay, your choice. If you want to put some links or something else in the
Yeah,
chat.
I will give some links, and maybe we can add it to the discussion
Yes,
in the
thank you so
video.
much, Radu. Thank you so much, Dragos.
In the
Thank you
meantime,
also.
if there are any questions from online, please feel to ask. Otherwise, we can, let's say, call it a day. I encourage you to continue the conversation on, I don't know, next events, upcoming events on cybersecurity, even if it's here local in Romania or, I don't know, abroad. Challenge your existing prioritization models, explore new models of, I don't know, vulnerability management, pen testing, offensive security, blue team, and so on.
And social engineering.
Yeah, probably that's another topic that we need to approach.
Yeah.
We can reserve some more hours on this topic, and have some, of course, some practical examples: phishing, smishing, whatever, ishing, AI ishing, and so
Yeah,
on.
for sure.
I just
Uh,
launched I just launched at the end of the previous year the new concept mishing, mind ishing, because artificial intelligence is not only social networks. It's about mind, all of us.
yep.
I
So
would,
on behalf,
sorry, Dragos, Radu, I would have a question regarding the prioritization of the vulnerabilities. You were saying earlier that it's not effective to prioritize according to the CVSS score. Um, I've seen some other professionals in the industry talking about prioritization depending on, for instance, CAV lists or EPSS or things like that. Given the fact that Nessus and other tools are giving you in the reports things like data like EPSS score, CVSS even, but they're lacking context like exposure in the network and things like that. How would you see let's say a formula or um, a context or something that takes into account all these all these facts and provides a quite accurate, let's say, illustration of the exposure and the real risk in the network.
Thank you for the question. So that's what I was saying in the beginning. You cannot rely only on CVSS. Indeed, Nessus or other tools are providing their reporting in CVSS because it's the most commonly accepted and used, and also not to be very patriotic, but it's coming from a particular area of the world, so of course everybody they adopted it accordingly. And you can see easily this thing on how easy is the CV adopted, and it's been here for so many years compared to the EUVD, which just started 1 year or so. I don't know exactly the but whatever, and pretty much nobody cares about it, to be honest. I mean, unfortunately, and they're pretty much copying everything from CV and put it in EUVD. So coming back to your question, the best case or what I'm advising is, and what we implemented also in Centralizer, we're taking different type of information, like you mentioned, the severity, is there exploitability, the CAV list, the EPSS, and all that. Then, beside that, which from my point of view are purely technical severity, you need to add up the exposure, but it's not always about the exposure. I was having a discussion at some point with a very big pharma that did the vaccines from the COVID, to be more precise, one of the vaccine producer. And I was speaking with them exactly during COVID time for a vulnerability management platform implementation for them. And they were telling me directly, look, our internet exposed websites and servers, we do not care about them. What we care about them is what is in a very isolated lab somewhere in the network, completely separated. That's what's really meaningful for us. So the exposure, it depends. Each company sees it differently. So that's the reason why in Centralizer, what we did, we're taking all these elements and we allow the organization to configure how important they are for them. And we're saying, look, I want you to take into consideration the network security zone 10%, meaning that if there is in a particular network, I want to put 10% on the risk on the prioritization. If there is a public exploit, I want to put it, I don't know, 15% or 20%. If it's a high critical asset for the business, then you add up another. So we're starting from a baseline, and then we can put either going up or down even. We have also the possibility to go down to lower, for example, some risk. If there is a completely isolated network, we do not really care in that because maybe it's a development and environment and it's completely isolated. Then we might even say, okay, compared to the normal LAN of the network, which will be as a baseline, we can go a little bit lower in terms of the severity. And we allow the organization to actually combine these elements and to create their own formula, because from what I can say in the last I don't know, let's say almost 10 years this year of software development as for Centralizer, there is no one size fit all. Definitely, you need to allow each organization to customize based on their needs, and this is what we're providing with Centralizer. I hope this answered your question. Dragoș, you want to add something?
Thank you.
Yeah, regarding this, and also regarding the AI implementations and integrations and whatever is happening now with this part, I saw some solutions that somehow are, let's say, a layer above the AI agents that are taking the decision. I know there are some solutions based on graph theory, the implementation, which actually add the actual context in order to eliminate those actions that can be taken by the AI agent in order to, I don't know, to break or to take some stupid actions. But with this thing, with this graph theory, and let's say based on some ontologies, in order to add this context, this good context, I think it can be prioritize the entire activity of such an agent, and let's say for future implementation of AI. I know that there are some companies that actually create this as a service for a lot of, let's say, AI implementations and AI agents. And yeah, for the future, I think it's going to be a good idea to explore this this part. But yeah, we'll see how it's going to evolve. We have, let's say, 1 month after OpenClaw was launched, OpenHub and the other, let's say, networks for AI agents. It seems to be like I don't know, a big chaos around this. How the agents are learning, where are they keeping all this information, how are they acting, reacting, performing all their actions. So I think it's a big work in progress for the entire industry. Good. I don't know, Radu, do you want to say something in as a closing remark? Okay.
I think it's okay.
Well then.
Thanks.
Well then on behalf of the Cloud Security Alliance Romanian chapter, thank you for being part of this great discussion, workshop. We look forward to see you at our next event. And have a great evening, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.